Showtime! The Capital G show starts right now.
What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking Monarchs in this video, and that's because I feel like quietly and secretly Monarchs is a really strong deck right now. I feel like for a medium to large scale events like a regional or a YCS, I feel like Monarchs are a great meta pick, and I've got 3 reasons why. First off, number 1, just like Mermail and Dragon Rulers, you have a very strong resistance to spell and trap removal. You know, Mermail obviously have their plays where they can just, you know, set their bit spear and know that if you heavy storm or MST them blindly, that they can chain it and get a +1. Dragon Rulers and Monarchs are pretty much in the same boat. They don't have to worry about ever getting MST'd because, I mean, Monarchs don't set cards. I mean, you run basically no traps, so you don't even have to worry about your opponent in phase MSTing like a breakthrough skill or a return from a different dimension as Dragon Rulers commonly run. Second reason, you know, Macrocosmos is a card that obviously can just auto win against your deck, but you know, I said this a while ago, I think macro decks are slowly but surely going to dissipate. And that's simply because while Macrocosmos is still a very powerful card, obviously it can be game clinching against decks like Mermail, Frog Monarch variants, Dark World, and Insectors, it is not nearly as potent or effective against Dragon Rulers and Prophecy as one might imagine. Those decks can pretty much play right through it, and you look at Dragon Rulers and it's like, how quickly can they just make a Dragosack and blow it up? Or, you know, you look at the fact that anytime that their Dragon Ruler monsters are banished, the big ones anyway, they just search other cards, so they're not going neg. Prophecy, if they already have a graveyard before you flip macro, can just Spellbook of Fate it, and Spellbook of Judgment is unaffected by macro. I mean, they're still going to search a billion spells, and they can just basically go into beatdown mode and just beat you over the head. So as these macro-based decks like Macro Rabbit, which I think is a deck that is going to completely die out, you know, as these decks see less play, this only bodes well for Frog Monarchs because there's less opposition. But my biggest reason for why I like Frog Monarchs right now, and let me specify, I should have done this earlier, I'm talking about just straight Frog Monarchs. I'm not talking about Lancer Frogs because I don't really feel like Lancer is that great, is their matchups. You know, I think that this deck has excellent matchups against Evilswarm, Mermail, and Dragon Rulers. The Prophecy match, I don't know about that. But against these 3 decks, let's break them down right quick. Well, against Evilswarm, you know, Ophion doesn't stun this deck like it does against other decks. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about, like, Dragon Rulers where half of your deck is negated, or Mermail where, I mean, 4 big monsters in your deck you can't summon. You know, as most Frog Monarch variants should have already dropped Tragodia, as I have by now, I mean, this means that pretty much your only effectiveness that Ophion gets in this matchup is Gorz. I mean, yeah, okay, the Gorz is 1 out of 40. You know, Caius and Raiza are both easy outs to Ophion. They both get around Forbidden Dress and the Pandemic Virus. So, you know, when you tribute summon for that, I mean, your opponent pretty much has to have something like Fiendish Chain, a Solemn card, or something of that nature. But in general, it's not really that hard to deal with Ophion, and you know, that deck doesn't really have any other plays that really disrupt you outside of maybe Abyss Dweller. But you know, when they summon Abyss Dweller, then they open themselves up for the spell cards that obviously you can't use against Ophion because of the Pandemic Virus. When it comes to Dragon Rulers, I think that this is a very favorable matchup. I've tested it extensively, and I think that, you know, I almost want to go so far as to say that this could end up being one of the easiest matches for Frog Monarchs going forward. You know, for starters, their linchpin opening play, the Dragosack, that offers itself protection and the ability to blow cards up at the same exact time. It basically gets no utility versus Frog Monarchs. You know, one of the best things about Dragosack turn 1 is it essentially stuns your opponent to where they cannot play non-chainable traps, things like Mirror Force or Dimensional Prison, or set monsters turn 1, or hell, even summon any monsters, unless that those monsters are viable threats to get Dragosack off the board. Obviously, something like Neo Grand Mode will qualify. Here's the thing about Frog Monarchs. We don't play back row, so you don't have to worry about Dragosack blowing those cards up. And you have a lot of just quick ways of getting that card off the board. You know, while other decks have to worry about using destruction cards that probably won't kill Dragosack, You've got cards like Caius and Raiza at Soul Exchange. You have Enemy Controller where you can take their monster, activate the effect, blow up one of their cards, and then just tribute it away. I mean, you have 4 really good instant outs to Dragosack. Not to mention, I got Vanitys Fiend on a Dragon Ruler player, and the Vanitys Fiend is like the nuts against that deck. It basically says fuck your couch, and it's near auto win against it because, you know, I mean, they've got what, Dark Hole and Blaster's effect. I mean, they can't do anything else outside of that. So, you know, I've been actually running multiple copies of Vanitys Fiend and my Monarchs right now, and if you get it on board against Dragon Ruler, I mean, they basically have to scoop. Like, they can even have the dragons on board. All you have to do is just end, and during your end phase, their monsters get bounced to the hand and you win. And then against Mermail, Light and Darkness Dragon puts in a ton of work against this deck. Not only does it get rid of those set lands, you know, it makes it so that all their Atlantean monsters that they discard, you know, a lot of them won't trigger, and it just creates a lot of headache for them. Not to mention, once again, just like in the Dragon Ruler matchup, Vanitys Fiend is near auto win. They basically have to have something like, you know, Spike plus heavy infantry in hand. It's not very common that they're going to have that. You know, all their plays pretty much go down the drain. And then Maxx C, which is a card that Frog Monarchs generally are going to run 2 to 3 copies. That card is just the obvious nuts against Mermail. You know what I mean? Usually if you Maxx C him at the right time, you'll end up going +2 or so and giving you adequate defense to make up for the fact that you don't run generic traps. You know, so what I see right now for Monarchs is I see that these macro decks are basically about to be DOA. You see that the, people who are maxing out on MSTs and, you know, all these heavy storms and all of that, that has no effect on your deck. And then you have really strong matchups against Evilswarm, Dragon Ruler, and Mermail. Obviously, the Prophecy matchup is, you know, a bit dicey, but, you know, we can side Spell Canceller and other stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think. I think that Monarchs are really good right now. Also want to say, note that Stylos run Raiza right now because unlike maybe 6 weeks ago, like, this format is all about getting rid of Xyz right now. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Subscribing makes life happy.